Well, well, well. Look who has finally came back from creative purgatory out of sheer coincidence and anxiety induced creativity. What I mean by that is, once again, 1 year later, coming out with a video the day before my birthday out of sheer anxiety of not having done enough over the past year of my life. And honestly, this and combined with me catching COVID for the first time this entire pandemic, I don't know how it got me. Double vaxxed, boosted, still got my ass. Luckily, symptoms are chill. I'm almost having virtually no symptoms. Listen, I'm editing this right now and looking back at the footage. Man, forget symptoms. I look like I have the suds right now. God damn. Man, I promise I'll look much healthier and sexier next video because this is looking rough. Anyways, all right, back to the regularly scheduled program. Symptoms now, but still testing positive. So just isolation, which sucks so bad because like literally had a whole party planned for yesterday. Don't know if I'm going to test negative by tomorrow, which is my actual birthday. But everything I feel like happens for a reason. And I think part of the reason why I think I caught it this time was so I could sit my ass down and make some content that I've been promising to make for the past however many years of my life. But yeah, I tried to make a video last night. Didn't turn out so well. I just was trying to be too intellectual with it and try to give my thoughts on the phase 4 of the MCU and kind of the content that has been coming out from that. But it took a lot more brain power than I thought. And it was like 2 a.m. And I was just like, let me go to sleep, regroup tomorrow, which is today, and kind of attack it in a different way. But yeah, so right now I'm going to make this video about something that is less controversial and more related to me, because what better than I to talk about than myself? If that sentence even made sense. But yeah, so I'm gonna do a quick hitter episode today on my top 5 favorite heroes, some of which kind of you can see back here a little bit. But yeah, thought it would be easy to knock this out, get a quick video, get back in the swing of things, and allow myself to be creative again and hopefully not take a whole nother year before making another piece of content. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the top 5. Coming in at number 5 is Green Arrow. And a lot of you may think that I may have came to this conclusion based off of the CW show. Well, you would be wrong. I feel like the CW Green Arrow doesn't truly encapsulate that character for me. For personally, I like, and maybe say even more impartially, Green Arrow is supposed to be a more fun-loving and outgoing kind of hero, and doesn't take himself as serious. Whereas in the show, he is kind of more depicted as a dark, brooding, serious, not very full emotional spectrumly based character, if that makes sense. Just kind of right in the middle, just super stoic, which is not who he is defined as. I personally love the characters, which you'll find to see in the rest of this top 5 list, that are more friendly, you would say, I guess, and more just outgoing and kind of just personable, extroverted. I truly love those kind of characters. And that's what Green Arrow is supposed to be. And he's a man of the people, very akin to kind of how he looks, which is the Robin Hood kind of thing, where although he himself is a billionaire, kind of more a man of the people and very liberal leaning himself as well in terms of kind of how he goes about his heroics. But yeah, and on top of that, in terms of actual power or skill wise, I am obsessed with archery in all kind of facets, whether it be Green Arrow, whether it be Legolas from Lord of the Rings, whether it be Hawkeye, who is a Funko there somewhere, whether it be even Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games, Robin Hood. I read the original book and as a kid, and who am I missing? Oh, the Ranger's Apprentice series. Those books I was in love with. Just anything related to archery, I was such a huge fan of, which is why during the pandemic, I was like, why not also engage in that? Which is why I bought a bow and arrow, and I'm gonna put some clips right here of kind of my archery feats, which honestly, not gonna lie, I'm kind of sick with it.
Wow.
Whoa! Like, give me 4 years, Olympics. I swear to God, I'm telling you. There's gonna be people in the comments like, you don't know what it takes. I don't know what it takes actually, but that will not stop my irrational confidence. But yeah, love Green Arrow as a character. He's in at my solid number 5. Could be bounced by another character in my honorable mentions. It's kind of like he has a firm spot right there, but never say never if he could be bumped out, as opposed to my top 4, which are pretty solidified as my hardcore top 4. But yeah, if you love Green Arrow from the show, look into some of his comics, some of his kind of stories that go beyond the show, and you'll get like a broader range of who that character is and kind of his own situation around that, not just the very Batman-esque version of the CW show, which the CW, honestly, it deserves this whole other video from me on what they've done, and DC in general with their live action, but I'll get to that another time. But on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 for me is Nightwing, also known as Dick Grayson, also known as the first Robin. For me, Nightwing really kind of emulates or encapsulates a person who dealt with similar traumas to Batman, but came out of it as a person who hasn't changed who he is in relation to others. He's a very outgoing person, very friendly, also known as one of the better just friends to have in the DC universe. And that's something that I truly appreciate in the character and also strive to relate to, that kind of going past your traumas, you don't let it affect how you kind of move forward as a person in relation to your friends and your family. And always just fun, outgoing, witty, quippy, right? Always having a fun kind of remark to say, lighthearted, just overall amazing. And in skill-wise, that doesn't detract from his skill. Amazing fighter, amazing tactician, very intelligent, using his own past as an acrobat to be very agile in his kind of moves and being creative with how he approaches his fights. For me personally, I love the characters that are agile and kind of nimble and not necessarily heavy hitters or brutes, but very strategic in how they kind of go about their kind of fights and fighting crime and all of that. So really love Nightwing for that. Yeah. And the kind of evolution of him as a character from Robin, where he's a very integral part of the whole Batman mythos, that you can't really have Batman. I mean, you can, but a big part of Batman is Robin, and kind of how Robin helps save him go from an even darker path and bring him more into a more reasonable kind of mental state to help continue to fight crime. But yeah, love Dick Grayson, Robin, and Nightwing. And I'm so excited to be able to play as both Nightwing and the rest of the Bat family in the new Gotham Knights game. Hopefully that game's not trash, but really looking forward to that. But yeah, moving on to number 3 on my list, which is for some people not a household name, but for me is kind of one of the prominent comic book characters of my childhood. That kind of really solidified my love for the genre and the characters of like those universes itself, which is Static Shock. I forgot what station he was on. It was like WB Warner Brother or something. I forgot, like WB Kids, I believe, was what he was on. Static Shock is, for me, like the epitome of just cool, swagged out character that really encapsulates. God, I need to find a freaking synonym for encapsulates. Really embodies. Shout out to Soruses. Really embodies the like true cool teenage experience. And as a kid, prior to even being a teenager, just really looked up to just like kind of all like the cool things that Static did as a character outside of even the crime fighting. It just seemed so natural to him as opposed to like some other young comic characters that are supposed to be like depicted as teens and are kind of cringy and don't really talk about a lot of the nuanced aspect of life as like a teenager. Like you have your obvious, like you have a bully, you have love interest, you have annoying schoolwork, chores with parents and stuff like that. But the Static Shock show really tackled a lot of other prominent aspects of growing up, which is like your responsibilities to your families, dealing with the loss of a loved one, dealing with racism, both as a person directly impacted by it, as well as a person who was witnessing it and how you operate. Mental health. There was even an episode on a school shooting and how the characters kind of had to deal with a situation like that way, I guess, unfortunately ahead of its time in depicting those things that, and as a kid's show, really wasn't afraid to tackle those subjects. And to this day, still isn't left a huge mark on me on the like how comic book characters can really represent and provide a sort of outlet and expression to how to deal with real life issues. And so Static Shock will forever hold a place in my heart and like unwavering, like honestly here, like is my, has, I don't know if it's going to show, has been my phone screen for like the past 5-6 years. Absolutely love the character. Amazing. Hope they do him justice in the future with any potential live action like content. I'm hearing that Michael B. Jordan is like spearheading that project. So hopefully, man, with the way DC is going, I'm getting so scared. I have to make a video about that another day on what the hell they're doing with their live action and everything along those lines. But hopefully, fingers crossed, it comes out well and it's a great introduction of that character to the mainstream media. And also, I forgot to mention one of the biggest things. I absolutely love electricity powers and lightning and all of that. Like it's one of my favorite kind of powers that a character could have, and the fact that it's attached to a character like Static Shock is just really puts it up there. Like I love all characters that involve kind of electricity, like even down to that electric experiment from Lilo and Stitch. I was like Sparky or something. Loved him. Anything involving electricity, love it. So really that's kind of the reason why he's in my top 3, even though he's not such a prominent character. But I even have his books. Luckily, I was able to find them at my local comic book store from like the 90s and even the most recent runs that are coming out. So I look forward to see his evolution as a character and to hopefully have that be a catalyst for DC's more mainstream introduction of all of their milestone characters. And for those who may not know, I think I may have talked about it on the previous video, but Milestone is DC's kind of, not their subsidiary because it was its own independent comic book company that really highlighted amazing original black superheroes that I feel like haven't been done justice in modern media, or mainstream media, I should say. And hopefully that does those characters justice and allows for that milestone set of characters to really thrive. And I think like now is like the perfect time to do that. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, moving on to number 2. And one may guess by my backgrounds who those 2 may be. But coming in at number 2 is this guy right here, SpiderMan. SpiderMan is kind of just an amalgamation of kind of all like those previous characters I just mentioned, but just the stature and the sheer amount of lore and stories just amp that up to like 1,000. Just a true depiction of a hero that his personality really shines through, even in his day-to-day life as well as his heroing life. And I'm such, like I said before, a huge fan of the characters that are witty, funny, quippy, just fun-loving personalities and don't take themselves too seriously, which is kind of ironic considering my number 1, but we'll get to that in a second. But the reason why I have Spider-Man obviously on the top of this list is kind of the sheer amount of content and media that we get from him that allows us to engage in plenty of stories, and there's always something new to find out and discover about not only Spider-Man, but Spider-Man related characters. You go from like Spider-Man to like Spider-Man Miles Morales and Miguel O'Hara, if I'm remembering that correctly, like Spider-Man 2099. And part of the reason why you can have all of these Spider-Mans of like different races and even genders is that Spike Lee, I mean, not Spike Lee, I'm so stupid. Stan Lee is why Stan Lee kind of accidentally attributed to that character was allowing him to not have any like visible skin. So anybody can really kind of envision themselves as that character, as Spider-Man. And growing up, that was like when I was really developing my little childlike brain in like 2002 with the Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movie. That really kind of just locked it in place. My love for comic book related media. I had that on like DVD, just rerunning. We would take it on trips so I could just plug it in wherever I would go and just watch that movie again and again. And to think that of all the content and media we've gotten since then relating to Spider-Man, even coming down to No Way Home recently, and kind of really wrapping up both the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, and kind of truly embracing the past 20 years of Spider-Man culture. It was just truly amazing, and it's kind of why he's got to be in the top of not only my 2, but I believe in the top 3 of all comic book characters, because very brand recognized for such a unique original character. Like, doesn't have a cape, doesn't have a bullshit just diamond mask that doesn't cover like even 20% of his face. Like, everything's covered, unique. And to take a representation of even like a spider that is universally kind of despised, and to make a character based off of an animal like that isn't universally loved, and make the character universally loved, is just incredible. And you got to give props to that. And it's also kind of a good segue into my number 1. But again, like I forgot before, powers wise, super creative powers. Like I said before, I love characters that have agility and intellect that kind of combine into taking on foes that are bigger than themselves, and truly gives them like a underdog mentality, which I love in characters. But Spider-Man is also underrated in his strength, that he's always holding back, or usually holding back. And when I love those badass moments when he stops with the jokes and the like banter with his adversaries, and then they truly get scared because they're so used to him being kind of fun and lighthearted, even when they're trying to like kill him. That when he's serious and not talking, they truly brings fear to them. So just cool, nuanced aspects like that to the character that really put him up there for me. Absolutely love Spider-Man and can't wait to engage in all like the new Spider-Man content coming out soon. But yeah, and now moving on to number one on my personal favorite list. As you can see, it may not take much of a detective to figure that out, but my favorite hero of all time is the world's greatest detective, Batman. And he seems to kind of fall differently from the other characters on my list, since the rest of the characters on my list are more fun, witty, quippy, kind of outgoing, sociable even. And Batman is the more dark and brooding character. But the reason I think I put him, or the reason why I have him at number one for me, is all the other characters are the characters I can relate to and feel like my personalities are similar to theirs. Whereas Batman is a character where I have a more affinity towards, because I strive to be on the level that he is when it comes to things like just sheer will, intellect, creativity, problem solving. My nose so itchy. And a lot of people attribute Batman's kind of prowess to overcoming the odds, because clearly like he has no actual superpowers other than like him like amassing his like tech and all of his like gadgets through his wealth. But just as a character, what really kind of I fell in love with is his sheer like willpower and way to find his way out of any problem, creatively, strategically. It's just truly amazing. And physically getting himself to that like peak level conditioning through kind of his determination. And if you love Batman, you also get with him the surrounding aspects of Batman, like this Bat family, like we've touched on before with Nightwing. You can get like Red Hood, Tim Drake, Robin, Damian Wayne, his son, and then not only that, his villains, right? You get the Jokers, you get the Banes, you get the Scarecrows, very iconic characters in not only comic book like lore, but also in just public perception, public media, pop culture. Just truly like from the ends of the earth, you can find someone who knows who Batman is. And that's why I think like the main trifecta of comic book characters is you got your Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. The order of that is up for debate, but truly one of the original characters. I think the only comic book character like truly before him even was Superman. But like going back to have this character just really maintain his prominence in pop culture since I believe it was 1939 is just truly amazing. And because of that, being such an old character and having a lot of different artists and writers, filmmakers really take a stab at who he is as a character gave us so much content to really absorb. And it's such a blessing to live in this day and age where we have all this content to go off of, and really embrace this character, as opposed to like in the 80s where you have just like a few movies here and there that are not as kind of visually crazy as today's standards, and you have your comic books. But there's like a Batman story for everyone that truly embraces him as a character. And it's not just that he's dark and brooding, like that he has a lovable side deep down that shows. And when it does, it just makes it seem even more gratifying to see like amidst all of like that trauma, he still continues on and still has that power of good moving forward. And yeah, I think that's kind of why I relate to not only him, but all these characters, or wish to relate to them, is overcoming kind of obstacles and kind of taking and dealing with what you have and making the best of it, which is part of the reason why I have COVID. So I was like, you know what? Might as well do what I love to do and not let that bring me down and make this video for y'all. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that top 5 list. I might make another video in the future about my honorable mentions because I have a lot of characters that I love that don't fall within the top 5, but I feel like making a video on them would be worth it. And as well as like villains I love, villains I hate, heroes I hate. I have lists of those as well already laid out. So looking forward to making those in the future. Thank you for bearing with me. I mean, it's more on me. It's not like anybody was really at like my fucking door like, yo, we need some videos, but it just feels good to create again, and hopefully it's not a whole nother year before my next one. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and until next